Welcome to Nerds on Ice, where cool nerds get fired up on today's hot topics. I am your host, Chris Fury, and let me introduce to you our four esteemed guests. First up, we have Fredo Aguilar, has been a freelance stage manager in Chicagoland community for all of 11 years now, and in addition to stage managing, he's a jack of all trades backstage, as well as an actor and recent member of the Stage Manager Association. He's also a founding member of the Stage Managers of Color Chicago. And remember to support the arts. Thank you for coming on the show, Fredo.
Only a penitent man will pass. Only a penitent man will pass. Only
right.
A penitent man will pass.
Steve Gallagher is an award-winning actor, occasionally red writer, and rarely seen stand-up comedian. And Stan's hobbies including explaining Star Trek to people, being the most motivational cynic possible, and teaching his 9-year-old son obscure 80s references that no one around him will ever understand. I disagree with that, Steve. So he can be seen next in the Double L Dude Ranch Murder Mystery Show for the Little Lake Theater, and more info on that is on littlelake.org.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I
would say it's a pleasure, but you invited Fredo.
Next up, we have Dino, Spezzini Kathriner, as a comedian, actor, improviser, barista, carpenter, zookeeper, librarian. Hey, he's another jack of all trades, people. Dino was born and raised in Paraguay, then moved to Sweet Home, Alabama, because, well, that is the American dream, or that's what he was told. Dino now lives in LA, or was in LA until COVID, and then the fires came. So now he's been sheltering in a chicken egg ranch in Ramona. How's it going, Dino?
Hey, haven't burned down yet.
And finally, coming back is Brian Keith to the show. Brian has spent the past 25 years acting, singing, dancing, and entertaining the masses. Although he still does work as an actor, he has shifted positions in life and has taken on the role of director, videographer, editor, and scriptwriter. Recently, he has taken headfirst dive into Uranus, working with the video team to expand Uranus. Uranus Fudge Factory is a fun, kitschy shop in St. Robert, Missouri, and #1 tourist stop on Route 66. Only the best fudge comes from Uranus. Subscribe to Uranus on Missouri on YouTube. Thanks for coming back, Brian.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. You know, I decided to drink coffee out of my I love Uranus mug today, but I almost dropped a tea bag in Uranus for Steve and Fred.
I would tell you the warm-up for the show has kept me in tears, and my face is already hurting. But tonight's topic is about Indiana Jones. As you know, as many of you know, the word is out that Harrison Ford will probably be doing Indiana Jones. So should this be the last one? Who could be the next Dr. Jones, or should the character be replaced? You know, what's your favorite movie? We're going to cover all that little stuff. So we're going to start with you, Brian. What are your takes on another Indiana Jones film?
I don't think I would really mind it too much. Obviously, you can't use Harrison Ford. I mean,
because I think he's 70 now, right?
In the middle of the movie. Maybe if you have him as, you know, like the dean of the college and sending somebody else out, maybe a son. I think they're past the point of even using his son from the fourth movie. But I wouldn't be opposed to it, because I think that's something we're missing now, is those gritty action movies. Like a lot of our action movies today are like the superhero movies and stuff like that. But going back to that grit and that 1950s, 1960s feel, considering that's what the age would be, Harrison Ford would be, and all that kind of stuff. I think it would be a lot of fun to actually go back to that. But you would have to do it right. That way you didn't mar the image, tarnish the image of what Indiana Jones was.
Right. What do you think, Dino?
He was turning 80, by the way, or about to turn 80. Yeah. So that's pretty old. I think... From what Brian was saying, I hope that if he is the dean, all the girls are still writing stuff on their eyelids, because I think that would be even
the ultimate May
creepier.
December romance.
I know. I think Harrison Ford is doing a lot of these movies or same characters just so they won't recast, because I think he's pretty upset at the fact that they want to recast Indy or even Han Solo or whatever. So I think he's just gonna ride it out until he actually opens the arc and looks at it straight on, just so that he gets disintegrated. And then, oh my god, if the first 2 minutes of Indy 5 is just that of him just like, I'm going out because we gotta stop this, and there's only one way to stop it. I love it.
Marion won't shut up. I need to look at this.
I think it's almost impossible for there not to be a movie at this point. They are gonna, again, either he jumps on board with it or they're gonna replace him. So I think he'd rather be on board with the ticket. I will say that hearing Brian talk about that, it made me think of all the movies now are very ensemble heavy, of the franchises. I mean, all the Marvels are trying to do that with Justice League. You have the Fast and the Furious movies. So there is something about even the 90s, early 90s, of where it was like solo outings, right? And maybe you had a sidekick or something like that. And I think it would be nice to change pace and do those kind of movies again.
Steve, what do you think of not just having another Indy? I remember them talking about Chris Pratt possibly, either taking over the role, like doing a recast, like they're rebooting it, or even playing the son. What do you think of stuff like that?
Well, first off, I don't know what these guys are talking about. I'd love to see an Indy 5 and 6, Indiana Jones and the Search for the Best Early Bird Dinner, Indiana Jones and Where the Hell Are My Teeth. I think this is going to be fantastic. Chris Pratt doesn't do it for me, though, because you kind of need the person that can pull off both the intellectual and the adventurer, and I don't see that with Chris Pratt. I'd actually rather see somebody like, Paul Rudd or Ryan Reynolds in the role. That would be a lot of fun.
Paul Rudd as Indiana Jones would be very interesting. I can see that.
He pulls off the archaeologist well. I think it would work.
Fredo.
Well, I mean, if you have Paul Rudd do the part, it would be fine because he did drink from the cup. So eternally young Paul Rudd totally makes it understandable that having drank from the cup would keep you looking like a baby's B-sack in the end. I mean, but when it comes down to it, is it the Paul Rudd thing? Anyway, I think what I want to see is an Indy 5, and as the Luthi goes and interjects herself into a Horseman thing yet again, Luthi goes and reminds me that Harrison Ford is actually already signed on for Indy 5. So I do believe he's in there regardless. So
we all got those messages too, Fredo. We just weren't going to mention them on screen.
Doesn't matter. That's what I do. I mention those things on screen so the rest of you. So either way, he's going to be in there. But I think what it needs to be his finale. I think he needs to go full H. Ford on this and have whatever movie he wants, because that needs to be the kibosh on the end. He needs to look at the arc and be like, I'm sick of marrying shit. And what did I do by cursing Shia LaBeouf? And be like, Shia LaBeouf is my kid. Covenant. Like, after that, he face melts. We get and Chris Pratt is in there. Maybe he gets face melted too, but that's the end of it. And that's the rebirth of the new Michael B. Jordan Indiana Jones series that we bring in, where he is young black Indy. Rising to the professorial storyline and going as a young Indy. But
when he takes over the kingdom, and oh wait, no, that's another movie.
That's a left turn.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that thinks young black Indy Rising is like the perfect mashup of like every fandom possible? Like, you got the Dark Knight Rising, you got young Indiana Jones. Just throw them all together and see what happens.
It worked for Bang Brothers. Why not?
Yeah. There's been talk. James Mangold, who was the director for Logan, which really was probably the best Western type of send-off for the Wolverine character, it has been tapped to be the director for the next Indiana Jones film. What are your takes on that? And we can start with we'll start with you, Steve.
I would absolutely love it, because I thought the attention he paid to Logan was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Wolverine was not getting a good ending until Logan came around. And good God, we cannot let Crystal Skull be the ending of Indiana Jones. Because
What's that?
Something about that going left. Boy, did it
We
take a hard
agreed
left.
not to talk about that.
What are you guys talking
But we're-
about?
But
What is this, Crystal Skulls? You guys bring it
Guys,
up?
Dino's having translation problems again. Could somebody fill in for him?
so we're talking James Mangold, who's the director for Logan. He's been tapped to be the director for the next Indiana Jones film. I think this will be in 2022, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean,
Yeah.
We hope with the way everything's being delayed right now.
I'd absolutely love to see it. I'd love him to bring it back to the grittiness that Raiders of the Lost Ark was.
Mhm.
Like, Raiders was not an abundantly pretty film, but there was something down home and just like dirty about that film, which is what made Temple of Doom such a disappointment because they were just like, hey, let's throw every flashy thing at the wall and see what happens, and we'll just call it an Indiana Jones movie.
Okay.
So if they can bring that back a little bit, just the dirtiness and the fact that we are going to have an octogenarian Indiana Jones running around somewhere, Indy breaks his hip within the first 15 minutes and they have to figure out a way to shoot it.
Yeah, but let's remember that our very good friend Joe Bonamico did the same thing and was still able to mount a horse. So there
He
is
had
that.
his hip replaced.
Potato
Can I-
hippo,
I
whatever.
will bring
Potato
up-
hippo.
I am excited that it's James Mangold from Logan, but he also did direct the Wolverine, right? So I mean, we gotta kind of do a little bit of hopefully which one do we get, right? And I think that all depends on the script. I will say, let's get Christoph Waltz in there.
Oh, who doesn't like him?
Yeah, Christoph Waltz is a bad guy. Yeah.
And enough with the whole commie thing, like, let's have Nazis as the bad guys. Can't go wrong with that. Let's just keep it simple, stupid, right?
Dino.
Okay, go ahead.
Dino, we can even shoot it in your home country because isn't that where all the Nazis went after Germany?
Actually, the majority ended up here, but yeah, we're good. No, wait, they already did that in Crystal Skulls. They went. I was so upset. Oh my God, I'm gonna start.
Don't get Dino started.
Since I was a kid, I wanted to see them use the waterfalls from Iguazu, which is in the border of Brazil, Argentina, and then Paraguay right there. And I'm just like, this would be a great place to put a movie. And then I see the trailer for Crystal Skulls, and I'm like, oh my God, someone finally is using the waterfalls. And then I was like, never again come down to Paraguay to film stuff. Just don't do it.
So Brian, what do you think of James Mangold taking the helm?
First of all, I want to go back to that comment. I'll come back to that. So with Harrison Ford being 80 years old and how young he was supposed to be whenever all this was happening in the 30s, and then the 50s was the Crystal Skull. So now we're coming into the 80s now for whenever he's 80 years old and picking up, like, the Nazis aren't really an issue at that point. So we definitely need it would probably be the communists, the Russian communists or something like that, for the bad guy.
Okay. Okay. Are we pitching scripts? Great idea. Whatever the object thing is, like it might be the 90s or whatever, and he opens a time machine. Boom! Back there in Hitler time. There you go. He can be 80 years old, running around, in Germany during the Nazis, and it's solved.
Well, the Crystal Skulls and that waterfall from, down in Paraguay is where they found that, and they just never announced that. That aside, I think the vision would be absolutely great for, moving on to that next step. But it would definitely depend on, the script, the actors involved and stuff like that, because it can all go horribly awry if they don't have all their ducks in an order, because this is such a legendary franchise that, Crystal Skulls really almost ruined it. It really did. So, they get one more chance to try to revitalize this series. And if they don't do it here, then it's not going to go any further. And I'd also like to say hello to the Marlatt family. And I know Kaylin's a very big fan of all the Indiana Jones movies. So I hope you guys are enjoying it behind. So there you go.
Here's a bit of a fun
plugging friends from back at home on top of plugging Uranus. Really?
Oh, good for you.
I got a sound behind the curtain. We forgot about the guy behind the curtain.
Oh my God. Here's a bit of a fun fact. Legendary artist Jim Steranko was actually one of the people behind the idea for the look of Indiana Jones, as I found out this year myself and had a chance to interview. And he talked about how George Lucas and Steven Spielberg reached out to him, and they were looking for this look, and he goes into great depth on how he came up with this look, this 50s, this 1930s look. And it's a fantastic look. It's very iconic even now, very simple and very to the point. And I think you just can't, it's one of those things you just don't update. You keep it basic, you keep it the same, you just don't screw with it. And hopefully they can film this thing really soon before it gets too late, because I didn't want to mention Crystal Skull again, but watching him fight in Crystal Skull, I'm like, man, he can't get up too many times. I'm like, I don't recall hitting a guy that hard and he can take a punch.
It can't be
worse by a 6 foot tall Nazi.
It can be worse than you see. If he's 80 and trying to fight, I'm cool with it. But if he's doing Robert De Niro CGI, I'm 40, trying to curb stomp someone. That is the problem, I think. I'm okay with an 80-year-old Harrison taking a walker to
Yeah, but
get out of my room.
Here's the thing that the movie does really well, and I recognize this again after watching 1 and 3 again today. Skipping 2 and 4 as you should when watching the series. Is that the whole hilarious factor that they use in this is they use a very much Harrison Ford had a fighting style of dirty, messy, throwing people around fighting style. So as well as I that in terms of Harrison Ford getting swung at, at this point, Indy should know how to dodge a punch and should know how to take a dude and throw him after dodging a punch. So if depending on who they have be his son, if he's not necessarily the one who's landing the shots, but being the one who's like Jackie Chan, drunken master, falling out of the way and doing the physical comedy of falling over a table like he can do and getting out of the way of a punch, then they can sell it in a different way. And all 4 of us have been in fights that we've had to sell because we've had terrible fighting partners. So we all know how to sell a punch. And that's what they can do in the new movie. And on top of that, Brian, of all people, knows how to work camera angles to make himself look good. So they can do that with Harrison Ford. They can put a camera angle at a different spot, make him fall over the back of a chair, and have Chris Pratt or whoever, Dino Spezzini coming in and playing his son from some random, hookup that he had in 2 from one of the tribeswomen or something like that. Then,
Wait,
Dino can come in.
2 wrong continent for me to be his son.
It's fine. It'll work. They'll just pass it off.
So Fred, you mentioned watching 1 and 3 and skipping 2 and 4. So with that being going in, what is your favorite Indy movie and why?
Why do you have to choose?
Well, you gave me the point.
I get in here and you're like, oh God, all right, fine. The first is always the best, as a lot of us know from, Choose Your Backstory. Sometimes the first is the best.
No, we don't know, but go on.
I'm sorry, buddy, if you haven't found that out yet. Then but, I still think the first is the best. 2, happened. 3 made up for 2, and now we have 5. So at some point they skipped a movie to just go to 5. But I think it would have to go in that order: 1, 3, 2, 5.
Okay, Steve.
As much as I always hate to agree with Fredo, I'm gonna have to say Raiders is definitely the best of the movies. Last Crusade, close second because the relationship between Ford and Connery was so good in that movie that it was
Is
close.
he still alive? Can he be in 5?
Yeah, but they killed him off in 4.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, damn.
With looking at a headshot and saying like, oh yeah, he went quick there at the end.
What? It was a look at the flowers moment? I haven't seen
flowers moment. Yeah.
I haven't seen Crystal Skull in years because, it's not part of the series. Anyway, Steve was talking, I think. I don't know.
Yes. Two was awful, but it wasn't Crystal Skull awful. I mean, 2 was, oh yeah, let's do it in India. We'll have some Bollywood dancers. We'll go ahead and get, the woman that Spielberg was boning at the time to be the main actress. And
pre-boning.
Pre-boning?
Yeah.
That's what you do with chicken, right? That's what you...
Have you noticed she had 3 emotions? All right. She was angry, she was hysterical, or she was horny.
Yeah, but so were some of my ex-girlfriends.
Yeah, everyone you dated out in Ohio were basically that way. Yeah, great range you had there, Fred. So yeah, it's gonna have to be 1, 3, 2, and 4 for me as well. And 5, I mean, Indy could fall all over himself, and I think it's still gonna be 4. So,
Dino.
So I'm thinking of when I was a kid and I watched these, and so with that, I would go with 3 being the best. And it's got Sean Connery in it, and their chemistry and how that all worked out was great. And I feel like it did a great job of like having little nods, tip of the hat to the previous movies, even when they're going in Venice and looking for the tomb, and then it's like, oh, that's the Ark of the Covenant. It's like, how do you know? And he's just like, I know. But it wasn't like in your face, like they definitely did in Crystal Skull. Mm-hmm. But it just had the best of everything, I feel. And like it was at that point where the fight choreography and stunts were just like peak, practical stunts, right?
Right. The
only time that you see like green screen, which I noticed was usually it's saying in Cliffhanger and all that, when people are falling like if they're in a helicopter and it's about to crash, anything that's going off to a cliff and they're about to crash, it usually would be like quick green screen and the actor go like, ah, right? Other than that, I feel like the practical stunts were great.
Opposed to Willie screaming and knowing it's a dummy from the back, the weird rocking back and forth.
I saw my brother was huge Indiana Jones fan, like probably the biggest. So I grew up watching them. He dressed up as Indy a bunch of times for Halloween. So like, and in Paraguay you can get actual leather whips. So we would play around until one of us got hit. Like pretty early on, we were like playing around with his whip.
Dino, you're not going to the right shops. You can get leather whips here too.
Well, authentic, right? I mean,
yeah, Dino has his own. He's not going to those shops.
I know.
Can we remember Dino has real horse whips and crops already?
Yeah, and cheaper and better made. Made in Paraguay, not made in China, guys. Come on. No. But anyway, so for him, I want to piggyback this question for later. So for me, number 3 was my favorite. 2 was really scary with the whole pulling as a kid, right? When I saw it as a little kid, my brother's 3 years older than me. You guys, I think, it's 10 years and older than me. That's how old I think you guys are in my mind. And so 2 was just really scary. But growing up, that was my brother's favorite. And I think it was because it was like darker and grittier. But it's
2 was darker and grittier?
I think, yeah, for kids.
Yeah.
They opened with an anything goes number. I don't want to hear that 2 was darker and grittier.
But then almost immediately you're in a cave for the whole movie.
You're in a cave with slave children.
Which easily take out their... Anyway, I'm just saying, what other than the racist stuff that's going on, like I watched all 3. I didn't skip any because I don't count the 4th one, so I did not watch that. I watched it at the movies, and that was about it.
Four Kingdom, don't defend it. Stop
other
defending
than racist tropes and like Alfred Molina being, being a Mexican or Guatemalan or whatever you want to try and call him, I don't know. I enjoyed the second one.
Fred's losing right now.
I enjoyed all three. I'm just gonna put it at that. I watched two. Since I've grown up, since coming to the U.S., I guess everyone hates on two so bad. Maybe people can comment on the thread. I don't get why it's so hated. It's just a different mission that he's on, and that's it. And not all the missions are going to be
responses to it.
What?
Give me a second. I'll give you some responses.
Okay. Anyway, so 3 is my favorite. It just had everything. Since watching that movie, I wanted to own a motorcycle with a sidecar that Fred could probably ride in it, just to stabilize it.
You guys would bottom out.
I would wear a beanie for that. I would wear a helicopter beanie for Dino in his sidecar. And I will guarantee you that we will get pulled over in New Philadelphia, Ohio.
Oh, my goodness. So, Brian,
we will.
Brian, what's your favorite?
All right, so I'm honestly with Dino on this one. From what I remember, I've only recently rewatched 1 and 2, but I remember 3 being really good. It was fun adventure. It was fun comedy. I think that they really pulled it all together for the third one, and that only narrowly beats the first one. And the only reason, we talked a little bit before the show about Harrison Ford as an actor, how far he's come, from the beginning of his career. And I think that he wasn't that good in his first couple of movies. If you just look at how monotone at times he was, it wasn't coming off as being the cool guy as you think that he is. So I think that by the time the third movie rolled around, and I think it was 89, he was actually starting to find himself and be more comfortable, in the role. So I think the third one was probably the best, followed by the first one. And honestly, unpopular, I'm going to go with Crystal Skulls being the third one. But both that and Temple of Doom are so far down at the bottom. I think Temple of Doom is absolute trash. I just watched it again last night. There is nothing really redeeming about that movie. The lead female is absolute atrocious.
Mrs. Spielberg.
What's that?
Mrs. Spielberg.
Yeah, she was terrible. I don't care who she was. The little boy was annoying after the first 5 minutes. I didn't even care about him.
Hey, that's Data. Don't you? That's Data.
That was not Brent Spiner.
Oh my goodness!
Can I say real quick?
Data from Goonies.
Can I say real quick?
Golden Goonies. He was annoying in that movie.
What made it Raiders over Last Crusade for me is what the hell did the actor who played Marcus Brody do to piss people off? Because he went from being this ominous, do not touch, this is looking into the eyes of God, serious character. He must have taken a shit in Spielberg's trailer or something because he was this clown by the time Last Crusade came around.
They needed comic relief, though, for the third one. And
they brought back John Rhys Davies.
Yeah, but John Rhys Davies is not comic relief. John Rhys Davies adds the pepper to the entire movie.
He's a classical
John Rhys Davies is the allspice that you dash on top of it afterwards.
You're telling me in Raiders when he started singing a British tar, you didn't laugh out loud?
It was fucking hilarious, but that's what you expect from a John Rhys Davies. You expect the little bit of crab salt going on top of everything. He's the flavor on top. He's the Don Dino Spezzini that you throw on top of everything just to give your shit a little bit of
I'm glad you're actually explaining how Don is the flavor of us.
How do you know how he tastes? That's what I want to know.
So
I've had tacos before. I know it. I know.
Guys.
The way I look at it is, Steve, if I'm the pepper, Steve is Temple is the first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Fredo is Temple of Doom. and
I will pull your heart out, bitches. I will pull your heart out.
Brian is the third one, and I'm the pepper on top. So
guys, While we're talking about flavors and everything, I hate to cut this short because this is really good. The four spices. They're the 4 all spices. I hate to cut this short, but this is the end of the show, guys. I want to thank our guests. Yeah.
Who left this guy in charge?
I want to thank our guests for coming on to Nerds on Ice. If you like everything we've been doing on Nerds on Ice, you can follow us on Circle of Nerds on all social media platforms and anywhere you hear podcasts. And you can tune in next Wednesday on the Cosmic Disasters Crew as we talk about the Indiana Jones franchise.
Wait, we're talking about that?
Oh, no, that's us. That's us.
Oh. Gee, I'm like, Jackie didn't tell us anything about that. Don't be throwing that on our plates all of a sudden.
Fred,
Fred. You guys need to mute Fred now.
So we'll be talking about the worst of that film. Any party notes? We'll start with Brian. Anything you want to partner with and plug?
Hey, honestly, this is the first time that the 4 of us have been together in 4 years. So it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to do this. So thank you for all joining. This has been a great time for me. So thank you.
Dino?
Yeah. I'm plugging absolutely nothing. I got to go feed the sheep in a minute. So I'm plugging that. Come check that out.
I'm Scott.
That used to be Brian's gig.
But I will say, just to you guys had mentioned before we started that we needed a podcast. So whoever is watching this and listening, if you think you want to see more of this, fourth son, try and do something on a regular basis. Comment, let us know, and give us a topic. And
Dino's
we'll
first
do it
language
one
is
way or
not
another.
English.
No, or a second language for that. So thank you for the invite.
Oh no, thank you for coming on, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us. You took a chance inviting the Island of Misfit Boys onto your podcast. I mean, you got Fredo, the big loud dude from Massachusetts. You got Dino, who's born in Paraguay. You got Brian, who was hatched somewhere off the coast to an albino and an inflatable set of lips. You know, it's a pleasure doing this because I haven't seen my boys in a while. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. We're glad to have you on. Fredo, what you got? Oh,
I'm
loving it.
They save the best for last, and that's exactly what you do in a case like this. So, Chris, at least we understand that you know.
They're playing him off already.
God dang, this guy behind the curtain. Thank you all for accepting. Oh, okay. Thank you all for accepting all of us into this ridiculous situation. As you can see, the 4 of us have fun anytime we get together. And unfortunately for at least my wife, and I would say Steve's wife if he had one still.
He did for 10 months. Come on. Ease up on him.
Come on.
That was a good stretch for me. Come on.
It was fantastic. It was fantastic, buddy. Kudos to you.
Wrap it up, Fredo. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, we see what happens when you don't wrap it up, huh, buddy? Anyway, thank you all for a wonderful evening. I love you all. I miss you all. And Chris and the guy behind the curtain, thank you.
Thank you for coming on. It was been real entertaining, guys. I really appreciate it. Until next time, remember to educate yourself and others, entertain yourself and others, as you've been seeing here. And most of all, empower yourself and others. Tune in next week as we discuss the latest hot topic with more cool nerds. Until then, Chris Fury, out.
All right, everyone, chill.
To hear all of our podcasts, look for Circle of Nerds on iTunes, iHeart, Pandora, Spotify, or wherever you get podcasts. And if you want to see these weirdos in their natural habitat, just look for Circle of Nerds on YouTube and Patreon. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.